Hi, I'm Celia Boothman, founder of LTR Coaching, and I'd like to welcome you to the Inspired Triathletes podcast, where I'll be bringing you stories from female triathletes and taking on topics that are important to women in the sport. Okay, so hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm here with Heather Fell, who is a presenter on the Global Triathlon Network, and we're going to talk about how she's adapted her training and what she is actually doing in training now that she's pregnant. How many weeks have you got left to go? It's really soon.
Less than 4.
Ooh.
If he comes on time.
You know it's a boy, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I've got 2 boys, so it's
okay.
Great. Good fun. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so yeah, really close now to the big day and really exciting stuff. And you've been, I think we did Kona the same year. I think that's like, I found that out a while ago, which was 2017. So that's like, how many years ago is that? 7? No. Is it 7 years?
It will be. It was 6 years just gone then, wasn't it? Yeah, so it will be by October.
Crazy.
6.5.
Crazy. And so you would have been training quite a lot at that point for Kona?
I just started working at GTN, so it was a little bit of an assault on my time available, and we were traveling like mad. So it was more a matter of just trying to kind of get in some training when I could. But it was only my second Ironman, so
oh wow,
it had been a bit of a whirlwind because I did my first one in April when I wasn't at GTN, and then sort of 3 months later, just when your training needs to ramp up, that's when I started this new job, and it was learning a lot on the go and getting amazing kit, but sort of kit given to us last minute and things, and I was just a little bit of rabbit in the headlights. So it was I wouldn't say the ideal training, but it was more of just a privilege to get to go. So
yeah, definitely. So before you did Kona, what was your kind of background in triathlon? How did you get into presenting GTN?
So I retired from modern pentathlon sort of officially in 2014, and then I basically fell into the love of cycling and just had quite a lot of time. I was working as freelance within media and doing sort of work in schools and charities, doing quite a lot of presenting, commentating, comparing, that kind of work. So I was in the media field, writing some blogs and things, and then and I'd always thought I will do a triathlon, but kind of weirdly stopped swimming but did way more cycling and didn't actually do that much running at the time and had never really run much in the way of distance. I think I did do a half marathon as I retired, but that was felt like an absolute marathon to me. And it just took me a long time to kind of go, oh well, I do want to do a triathlon. Where do I start? And then I thought, well, half Ironman is kind of a challenge that's enough to scare me to make me train because I was retired, so not sort of that motivated. I thought an Ironman maybe would be a bit silly, and I just couldn't fathom even running a marathon, let alone doing it at the end of a triathlon. So I just entered, did the Outlaw half in Nottingham back in I can't remember, maybe 2015 that might have been. But it wasn't like I then went and started doing loads of triathlons. I really enjoyed it and was just rode my road bike, put some clip-on aero bars on, and just off I went. And just I found it fun, but then kind of I was like, well, that's just a sort of fun sport, and kind of carried on dabbling in it. And then after doing a few more, I don't think I did any shorter ones before I went to a full Ironman. I must have done another half or something, but I just thought, right, okay, now I need a challenge again that scares me more. So hence I entered an Ironman.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's amazing. So it's interesting people's journey, like how it goes, because everyone starts at different points, and it sounds like you were already pretty confident in your athletic ability from the pentathlon, so you kind of jumped straight. When I started, I was like, there's no way I'm doing Ironman. It's ridiculous. I mean, I started off really small, like sprint stuff to start with.
I think because I'd come from the shorter distance, so I knew I could do that, and I just wanted to do sport in a different way. So I didn't want to kind of be training for 5K, or I used to run 3K, so I wanted to be doing something that was just different and almost more social. Like I sort of found the long distance cycling and things very social compared to the training for modern pentathlon. So it was that different, just a different type of challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And so then you did Kona, and then you said you kind of didn't ride your bike so much after that. Is that right? What's
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, sadly. Well, I basically got a job weirdly working in triathlon, which means you have less time. And yeah, I used to cycle. I don't know, rather I say used to. I only really cycled for a couple of years intensely before that, but I just rode my bike all the time, sort of every other day and like every weekend. I'd do long club rides, and I'd do big trips and a bit of bike packing and all of that. And then yeah, I just started at GTN, and kind of talking about the sport all day and doing the sport with work. I wasn't freelance. I didn't have the time to ride with friends in the week. And then weekends were kind of often away or working or competing in other sort of events. So it just, and the ironic thing being, we got given amazing bikes because we've got several. When we started, we had 3 bike partners. We now partner with Canyon. So I've been really lucky to have these amazing bikes, but I ride less than when I had my sort of, very old
Yeah,
specialized
you're
road
right.
bike that I loved, and it took me everywhere. And so yeah, it's kind of, I think when you start doing something in your job, you almost end up it's often the way, isn't it? You just end up
Yeah,
doing a
I
little bit
think
less of that.
so.
And
Yeah.
I ended up getting back into running actually, and I just love my running. And that was just so much easier to fit around travel and work, and yeah, you
Mm.
could just do it anywhere. And I also, because I'd only run competitively at 3K really, a little bit at 5K, I could still push myself and get PBs, and still have done until recently,
Oh, nice.
in that discipline. And it's just so much easier to do and cheaper to do.
Yeah, for sure. How about swimming? Do you still swim?
I really struggle with swimming motivation. I'm so lazy when it comes to swimming. I did swim this morning, but before work, I also have to make myself go down to the gym, and just because I can't run at the moment, so it's swimming and
Mm.
cycling are getting a little bit of a reinvention, very mildly. Um, but yeah, I think swimming, because I've swam since I was tiny, and swimming was always very natural to me. As soon as I moved into triathlon, I realized swimming made such a small impact that I kind of just lost all motivation for it. And I just, well,
Right.
I can swim. I can spend 3 sessions to 5 sessions a week, and it would make no difference to my overall placing in a triathlon kind of thing. So I lost the motivation for that, but got into, thanks to GTN, I guess, and triathlon, I did massively get into open water swimming and just the social aspect of that. And so I
Okay.
swim in the summer, but probably there's more time spent in the pub having a nice meal afterwards than there is actually swimming around the lake. But yeah, I definitely enjoy. So in the winter, I last winter I did. I remember starting training, I think in like February time, because I was doing a relay in April. I thought, oh, I've got 5 weeks, I need to get fit, and I was doing the swim leg. So it kind of often happens, it tails off, and then I sort of start again in the spring, getting ready for the open water season. So yeah, swimming is more of a an enjoyment outdoor social aspect, I think, now than it used to be.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those sports that you have to stay quite consistent with and do quite a lot of volume to see many gains. Well, that's what I've found anyway. And it's quite small. It's kind of like, oh, I've worked really hard, but I've taken off like a few, especially with Ironman. It's
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
oh, sorry, with the shorter distances, it's even more of a kind of a less impact. Yeah, I suppose it has a knock-on effect on everything else though as well. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
good
depends
that
on
you
what sort
can.
of race you're doing. But I mean, I like to
Yeah,
be able to. I just need to be fit enough to be able to do challenges with work, basically across all 3 disciplines.
yeah,
That's the main thing. But luckily, coming from a swimming background, the swim, even if I'm not fit, I can still swim. So it's sort of, yeah, the one that doesn't
yeah. It
really.
comes back like quite
Yeah,
quickly, doesn't it? When you've got the technique and you don't have to
yeah.
relearn that every time you get in the pool.
Mm.
So yeah, so now you're pregnant and you've got 4 weeks left to go. So I just wanted to ask you about. I don't want to keep reminding you about that, but we've talked a little bit about what your training was like before, getting pregnant. So when you got pregnant, did you have any kind of thoughts or feelings about like, oh, what am I going to be able to do, or how is this going to look for me, or was it kind of a natural progression?
I think I just went very much to like trying to see the positive role models that have done it before and have been there, done that. And I mean, it's completely unknown, and I'm older coming to pregnancy in a sense, and it still scares me, and I don't know when there's the right time. And I think I was
Mm,
getting to the point where if I want to have children, I need to do it soon, but it still is very scary, and that loss of, yeah, for me, I get so much joy from training and from running and just doing social things with my friends. That is my life. So that was kind of a, how's this going to look? I'm not sure. sort of difficult one,
Mm.
but I also trying to learn the difference of when to push, because we're so used to as athletes just saying, well, if it hurts, that's fine. You push through
Yeah.
that, and trying to understand that actually I want to be running again after. So I now have
Mm.
to like actually think about, will this discomfort affect the after kind of running and the after ability. So it's been a quite a difficult change in mindset, but I think that's why we're lucky in triathlon that you've got three sports, and I like to keep strong in the gym as well. So it's just been a bit of a, okay, let's look at this differently and try to see the positives. And I've been very lucky in my pregnancy compared to lots of people that I speak to and hear from. So I'm trying to see that, but then I go through days when I'm like, oh, I see someone running and I'm like, it's so annoying, but I was like, I'm not injured, this is my choice. It's different. I've had enough injuries that I've come back from. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I go through swings and roundabouts with how I'm sort of emotionally dealing with it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really like I resonate with that completely because I felt very similar, and it's kind of like your body completely changes, like you're used to being fit and slim and looking a certain way, and then all of a sudden you've got this bump and it's like, what am I how am I supposed to move? And it just feels very strange, and like you say, but it takes a bit of like adjusting to, for sure. And then that everything's going to be different afterwards as well, so you're kind of like looking into the future for that as well. So there is a lot to deal with, definitely. And I think, like, which role, when you think about role models, which role models have you found particularly helpful and useful to you?
I think it's been that balance of trying to find people who've had positive stories, but some of those that maybe hasn't been so smooth, because then you you realize that they can still come out the other side as well. And it's one thing hearing from someone who's like, I mean, recently I just put a video out on GTN and we interviewed Jess Learmont, who had an
Okay.
incredible pregnancy and it all just went really smoothly. Yet I
Mm.
also spoke to Vicky Holland, who just had a disaster pregnancy and couldn't train, from sort of, she had to stop all of her sports, including swimming, at some point because of her shoulder. So yeah, I think it's been more just trying to like just listen to lots of stories and watch people on their comebacks and just constantly be motivated by athletes. Like just recently at the indoor athletics world championships with Ellie St Pierre, who became world champion in a 3K,
Wow.
only less than a year after, well, 2 days before her son's first birthday, which is just like stories like that I just think are very cool. But then also, yeah, understanding that it isn't a smooth trajectory and it's no reflection on who they are. And I think there is a little bit of that in sport, that people do think they have to sort of put on this brave face and this like, oh, you're coming back so soon. And that's what I had originally kind of
Mm.
looked at as those people that really motivated me, of like, oh, so and so was back doing an ultra UTMB 3 months
Yeah.
after having a baby. That's amazing. God, like, wow, she can do it. Then maybe there's hope. But then actually, the more I understand, I realize that that isn't necessarily the the be all and end all. And I mean, a friend of mine who again is a role model, but only recently told me that she took a very long time to be comfortable running, and she's only now just sort of going for PBs, and her daughter's 5. But we
Mm.
ran an ultra together 4 months after she had her baby, and you realise that actually that was, yes, it's amazing, but was that the right thing for her to do? Probably not, because it actually
Mm.
affected her running journey in the long term. So you're just learning from everyone's different stories, I think, and I think all women who've given birth I'm in awe of. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just enjoying hearing all that information and just trying to be as open minded as possible.
Yeah, I like that because I definitely think, I go from one thing to another, and like you say, you see these inspirational stories, like, wow, that's amazing. I want to be inspirational and everything, but everyone's situation is so different. And also, like, being a mum is like a massive life change, and you do have to change your life. You can't just pretend you've not had a baby and carry on as you did before. So it's like the way of integrating it and how you feel comfortable integrating that into your life, because everyone's completely different, and I did it differently both times as well. Like, the first time was different to the second time, the way I integrated things. Um and I don't think there was so much of a rush, or I didn't feel so much pressure the second time around. And I think
Okay.
it's very common thing that people feel like, oh, it's going to be okay, because I
Mm.
think you kind of like, for me anyway, I was still holding on to that, like, personality or the person that I was before I had children, still like trying to get back to that person that I was. But it's like you're not that person anymore.
Mm.
You are,
Yeah.
but you've got other stuff that you need to deal with as well. So that's what, yeah, I found it very different both times. I ran till quite late with my first son, and then the second one, I just didn't run as late. And like you, I was just running. I didn't do anything else. I didn't want to go on the bike. It was like
Yeah.
didn't feel right for some reason. And swimming was okay though. Swimming's great for and afterwards as well is nice with the
Mm.
once you can go because you can't go straight away, and then you can
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
the little one in with you and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. Okay. And so, how has your body sort of felt throughout pregnancy? Like when you've been training, and how have you kind of known when to do stuff and when to kind of back off, or what you felt comfortable with?
Yeah, it was a weird one because I obviously read lots and the all of the old stuff saying you shouldn't get your heart rate over 140 and things. But I was thinking, well,
Mm,
why not? Because our bodies are incredibly clever, and people have been having babies for years or for centuries,
mm,
and we didn't have this information before, and there's still not that much research. So I was just very much, and I didn't tell my coach for a while because I was just like kind of wanted to work it out myself and didn't want to be told what to do. And this was when I say coach, it's running coach because running was the main thing I was doing. But I did actually suffer the first discomfort before I knew I was pregnant, and I got an absolute killer of a stitch towards the end of a
mm,
5K. And I just couldn't push through it. I ran like the last 500 meters, sort of bent double, and I was like, "This is really strange." I'd eaten
mhm.
normally, like there was
Yeah.
no reason, and I was just coming back to trying to run fast because we had a few months before had done some absolutely incredible, crazy endurance challenges with work. So I was a bit like all of my speed had just been taken away from me, and we'd done a swim run, sort of ultra in the Lake District. Only a few weeks before that, we'd done another big like commute to a triathlon, then do a triathlon, and there was some other crazy challenge we'd done as well. So there'd been a lot of like stuff of really putting your body in the hurt locker, but like
Mm,
long, slow things. And I was determined to try and run a 5K PB that last summer. That was like my
yeah.
target. So I was just starting to kind of find my legs again and get back, and yeah, then found out quite early on at sort of 5 weeks that I was pregnant, and I just kept getting this stitch pain, and it was just
Mm,
really annoying because it wasn't damaging type pain. It was literally purely like a stitch. That's how I describe it. But it would come on so strong, and sometimes it come on a jog, and I just have to like walk for a bit. So ever
mm,
since the summer, my running has been really compromised, and there's been days when I could train properly, and others when I couldn't. And then it just became like a constant battle of finding that fine line of wanting to kind of do sessions because that made me feel better, and the time efficiency and the kind of the importance of being strong and fit, yet constantly feeling like sometimes it felt like I needed a wee, sometimes it felt like a stitch, sometimes it just felt another discomfort, and it changed all the time, so it wasn't like the same thing, and I couldn't really
mm,
find, sounded like ran ligament pain but I had no bumps, so it didn't really make sense. So I just had to basically work that out myself as to whether the benefits I got from running, the feeling afterwards outweighed the discomfort. But
yeah.
I was away a lot at around this 8 to 15 weeks. I was probably abroad more than I was at home, and running's one thing you can do when you're traveling to kind of keep you feeling sane and healthy. And so I was constantly trying to do it, but I was trying not to run with people because I had to keep kind of go for a wee or just changing my runs so that it could kind of I could still do it. And then I still did quite a few races, which was fun, but it was kind of a weird to race with that mentality of like, oh, I kind of almost felt like I was lazy racing because I was like, well, I don't have
Oh,
to push it
really?
to absolutely max because I probably shouldn't. So I'm just going to run. And it was in a way, it was like weirdly enjoyable because I was less nervous. But then I also partly felt like a little bit lazy that I was like, no, I'm not actually emptying. I'm not actually emptying the tank here. And I didn't,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
tell people. I didn't really tell people I was pregnant until about 20 weeks. So I did quite a lot of races before that, and I think people were probably just like, "Oh, Heather's running a bit slowly," or especially like running local club races and things, and yeah,
Mm,
and just kind of keeping it quiet to myself. And there was one race very locally. I think it was only about 15K or something. I can't remember. Very hilly, but I had three wees on that race, and I managed to like duck behind a bush. And it was this girl that I was having this sort of to and fro competition with, and I kept overtaking her, and then I'd have to like she at the end she was like, "It's really confused because I just suddenly couldn't see you," and I thought maybe you just like run really fast ahead of me, and then you'd come past me
It
again,
pop
and I was
out of a
like,
bush.
yeah, and I was like, I wasn't cheating, I promise. And it's funny because I had to sort of just accept that like I'm not going to be, and the girls that I would normally be competitive with were way up the field, so I had to reframe it of like, well, I still want to try and beat that girl, and I want to try and beat people that I don't know that were just
Yeah.
there in the race, and also another one, normally beat my partner, and I had to accept that I'm now not going to beat him for quite a long time. So I said he can, as soon as the baby's out, he can be the one carrying
Yeah.
it. So then I can hopefully
Well,
be back
you
to
do
beating.
get that boost, don't you, several weeks later
Yeah,
from yeah.
yeah.
So
So I've
yeah,
been
you'll have
told.
to yeah. I
Well, the
didn't
last.
I didn't get that, but I wasn't really racing, so I did race like similar to you actually before I knew I was pregnant, and we were trying to get I was trying to get pregnant, and I did a 10K race, and I was like, God, I'm so tired. What's wrong with me? I was really exhausted by the end of it, and I just thought, oh, I must just be a bit tired from something or other. And then I
Yeah,
found out that at that race I was pregnant, and I was like, oh, that'll be
it was a
why I was
relief.
really
Yeah,
tired. Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
it
the
wasn't
last.
just me making it up or being lazy. That's like a really funny thing to say to yourself. Like it's kind of like, yeah, it's you're not being lazy at
It's
all.
a
It's
weird
just like,
mindset. I mean, yeah. The last
yeah.
race I did was at 22 weeks pregnant in out in Oman, and I was supposed to be doing the 50K ultra, and I knew that I would be 22 weeks when doctors said yes, but I just hoped that maybe I would be okay to do long steady stuff, and but just
Mm,
running was too uncomfortable that I never did any long runs, and also with the heat I was like I can't do that, so I had to kind of tell them, and I felt really bad, and they were like, oh no, but luckily there was a 10K, so, and it was 6:30 in the morning, so it was not going to be too hot or anything. So I think that's the only thing I was kind of careful of, really. Not that
yeah,
I travel that much in it. It's winter, so I haven't been getting hot. But just out there, I thought, oh, an ultra might be pushing it a bit much.
yeah, yeah.
But I was more concerned that if I needed to stop to find a bush, it's it's a Muslim country, and I don't want to be
Yeah.
offending anybody. offending anybody. But anyway, so I sort of lined up for this race, and I was like, well, I'll just jog it. My partner can race. I'll let him go, and I'll just jog it because we're out here and it's a holiday and it's great. And I just and because the sort of discomfort I have almost was less when I worked harder or when I ran better. So I kind of was sort of trying to find this balance of like it was never thinking, oh, I'm running hard. It's more thinking of like how can I run comfortably. And then there was this girl. I suddenly got onto this girl's shoulder, and it was weird because I normally would be like, oh, I can race her, and I was like, I can't race her because I can't. This discomfort is different to like running discomfort. But then I was on her shoulder, and we hit the off road, and suddenly she just went backwards, and I was like, oh, I think I'm in front, and yeah, I ended up winning this race, which I just thought I was
Of
going to jog. So I was
course.
almost slightly embarrassed. I was almost slightly embarrassed by that, but then. And then she came up to me at the end, and it turned out there was some quite good prize money. I had no idea, and she was just like, "Oh, I was wondering." She's like, "I was trying to work out if you were pregnant or not, if you just had a little bit of a belly." And I think she must have worked out that I wasn't unfit.
Something's
And
frozen. I
you
missed that last bit because you froze. So you said,
oh,
yeah, it's my internet saying it's unstable. That happens sometimes. It's really prize money, and then you froze.
yeah, so this girl who came second came up to me at the end because I think she sort of thought that she knows that it's quite a local community, so she knew who was who, and yeah, she came up and said she was trying to work out if I just looked like I had a little bit of a belly or if I was pregnant, and I think the fact that I obviously wasn't that unfit, she then realised that I was pregnant, and yeah, it was just really funny, and I was just like, yeah, I just kind of came to jog this
Oh
one, but
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a high standard race, but it was just really fun, and it kind of gave me that little boost of feeling like I was doing a race in a competition. Yeah, in my mind, I sort of wasn't, but that was then it because there was cross country races after Christmas, but I was like, I'm not fast enough to race for my club and run cross country because that's sort of
Mm.
properly hardcore, and there were no other races that were just sort of fun and short enough. So yeah, that was my last race, and I do miss that. I just love cross country and going and getting muddy and just doing fun runs with friends that are races, but they're not really about racing. They're just about pushing yourself. And yeah, so I definitely missed that this winter.
Do you think that there's more information out there now for women, or
There's definitely more than there was for sure, but it's still scary how little there is. And even speaking to professional athletes of how they still are having to navigate their own way. But then when I listened, I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, and they were interviewing the marathon runner Cara Goucher, and I think her baby or her child is 12, so this is 12 years ago that she was talking about, and
Mm.
just saying that she was back at training 2 weeks after because her sponsorship and her coaches were like
Wow.
expected it, and she talked about, she was still wearing, in her words, a diaper 3 months after giving birth, and she was just like, they kind
Oh,
of laughed about it, that,
Jesus.
and she just says how she wishes and she was made a real role model and ran her fastest ever time 7 months postpartum in the Boston Marathon, and I can't remember. I think she medaled or something, and did an
Mm.
incredible performance. And she was really celebrated for that, and everyone was celebrating that, and that really kind of brought home to me. And she was talking about how she wishes that she had the knowledge that she shouldn't have done that, and she doesn't have regrets, but it's there was no science, there was no knowledge of what. And she was saying, oh, I feel like a bit loose around my tummy, there's nothing. And her coach just said, just do some more core, like that.
Oh, yeah.
That is just, to me, is crazy. That was only 12 years ago that a professional runner had that little support from her governing body and from her sponsors
Mm.
and things. So I think we're lucky that we've come a long way, but that's part of the reason that I sort of want to do research and want to share, just through work, really, of what the
Yeah.
information is that's out there. So hopefully the more we talk about it, the more it can be done. And there's a lot of women who are really pushing research. And I spoke to a woman called Brianna Battles, who's based in
Okay.
America, and she's been and written a few papers with other people. And there are a few women who are really passionate and very knowledgeable. And it's a matter of, we've got a long way to go, but we've come a long way. And the more stories we hear from people, the more we can learn from each other, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. There's two things like picking up on there. Like the first thing is kind of going back to what we were talking about before with the role models and seeing people doing it and being like, wow, that's amazing, and you being celebrated for doing something and which might not necessarily be the right fit for you or the right thing to do. And in some cases, it's damaging for people, and you don't always see that side. Like, we wouldn't have known about that unless you'd listened to that podcast or later on. But at the time, people would have thought, okay, I need to be doing this and pushing myself this hard, and it's just not good for your body to do that when you're so close in. But I also see the frustration as well that can happen, because I know I was very frustrated and I just wanted to get me. I ended up having an emergency C-section, and it was like, just I I was really upset about that, because it's like abdominal surgery, not allowed to do much for quite a long time. And I remember going out with the pram, just like really angry, pushing the pram as fast as I could just to get some. I just was like, I need some exercise. I need to get out. And then feeling really bad because thinking I was going to damage myself. I didn't. I was fine. But there was always that sort of fear in the back of my mind that I was going to do something, and not knowing, like, whether you were going to or not, because they're just like, oh,
Mm.
be careful,
Mm.
listen to your body and this, that, and the other, which is good advice, but also it'd be nice to have some concrete stuff as well, wouldn't it? That, like, okay, they give you an arbitrary amount of time, but that can vary depending on how fit you are to begin with and how strong you are. There's so many variables in there that the standard advice doesn't really apply to women that are pushing things in sport. So
Yeah, I mean that's why I've actually spent some money and gone to see a women's health pelvic physio who
right.
has quite an understanding of sport and athletic herself, and has got some very sporty friends. So she does a lot of research, and I think it's been quite invested in my journey. So I was recommended her
Mhm.
by my running coach and my normal physio, and I would seriously recommend you, if you can afford, if anyone's listening to this and you can afford to go and see a women's health physio, even if it's just for one appointment before and then one after, so you know where you're at, and yes, you can read a certain amount of like what you should do and shouldn't do, but you won't know exactly what your pelvic floor is doing, or like how
Mm.
your body is from reading. You'll have an idea of how you feel, yes, because we're all told to listen to our bodies. But there's so she's been really instrumental. I've had 3 appointments with her, and I will see her again about 6 weeks post. But she also said, I can speak to her soon after, because I was asking like, how much can I walk afterwards? How soon can I walk? And she was like, well, it does depend, but
Yeah.
she can't answer that as a professional until I've had my birth, and then hopefully she can give me a little bit of guidance, just over the phone, and then obviously when it comes to like proper checkup, then she can tell me a little bit more of exactly what's going on. But it's, yeah, like you say, it is so unknown. And she even did say, yes, listen to your body, but you can sometimes feel fine and you might be doing damage. And that's like, oh my God. So
Mm,
where do you go with that?
yeah.
And I definitely, from initially, I'd always sort of thought, oh, you start getting back to it 6 weeks and like run, walk and things. But something I've learned from speaking to Jess and to some other professionals, that now the research does sort of show that you're better waiting until 12 weeks before you actually begin a
Right.
return to run program. So I've got that at least in my head. Like, it might be longer if I have complications. And even if it can be sooner, I kind of don't want to try and push it to be sooner. So I've kind of got my head around that's 3 months. And then at that point, I've got some really busy stuff on with life. So it might even be a tiny bit longer, but I see that almost as a positive. Whereas before I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh no, that's going to get in the way because I want to be getting back. But I'm trying to really look at, how I can be running next summer as opposed to this summer kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really good. That's interesting as well because yeah, I was told 6 weeks, it's fine. Everything's fine after 6 weeks. It's like, no, it's not. It's not fine. And I think especially with the C-section, I mean, I think I recovered quite well. I was quite lucky with everything because I know I've had friends that have had problems with their core and things. But I was obviously just lucky with things because I was a bit stupid, to be honest. I mean, the first time round, not the second time round, I was a much more calm. So, what does the pelvic health specialist? Yeah, what does
Well,
she do then?
I'm trying to remember her exact title, what we used on the video, but she's a women's health. I think she knows a women's health physio, but then does a lot of basically pelvic floor and looking at everything. And I think she's found with me that the rest, like my sort of the obvious muscles, the outside aspect of me in pregnancy has been fine. So I think she obviously also treats people with that who are stiff or who have
Right.
weakness and things, and has given me quite a lot of exercises to do in the gym and certain things to work on that for strength wise that's maybe been adapted slightly from my usual strength program. But actually having a pelvic floor examination, and so she now knows what my norm is, so that when I
Okay.
do return as well, we know what we're like working towards. And whereas if you just go afterwards, you don't really know where you're at before that and things. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's that's been quite sort of insightful for me as well, but also along with the strength stuff and a bit of mobility work. But I am a physio by training. So the
Okay.
actual skeletal side, I think, A, being an athlete, and B, being a physio by background, I am quite in touch with how my body moves and where the tight bits are and where the weak bits are and things. But it's still always good to have someone just on the external, just giving you that,
Yeah.
the black and white of, sometimes things you don't want to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, you just go, I just
Yeah, that would be
brush that
fine.
under the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't have to worry about that.
And I must admit, she's been very diplomatic, but on the like side of erring on the side of caution with running.
Right.
And she knows how much like I sort of wanted to run and keep pushing, but was sort of doing it in a diplomatic way of giving me the info, but obviously not telling me I can't, because
Yeah.
she knows that that's not going to do anything. So
No,
yeah,
I
it's just been
know.
giving me the education.
Yeah, you have to kind of decide it for yourself, don't you? And I think, especially with running, is so it's that high impact.
Mm.
There's that load going through your body, or whenever you run. So it's probably one of the most high impact things you can do, apart from like jumping around and
Mm.
some kind of gymnastics or whatever. So you're doing specific exercises for like improve. So that's going to improve your recovery afterwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much talk now from the sort of those who have done the research of being strong, and I was thinking about it whilst I was swimming, because I was just swimming as well, thinking, what's swimming doing? Because I don't really get out of breath, and I don't really like feel like I get tired. But I felt a bit better swimming. But I find that gym and cycling, like going on the turbo, is more rewarding for me. But it's all, I'm trying to sort of see it as getting as strong as I can for labour, but also for the recovery. And then if I've got as strong as possible, that then hopefully that how many weeks, months, or whatever, and I'm doing less, I will lose less, and I'll have that muscle memory to kind of come back to. So that's kind of, yeah, it's partly for labour and the endurance aspect of that and being strong. As I just see everything you read and hear, that's got to be a positive. And but then also, yeah, the beyond that as well, and also for my mental health at the moment, because being
Yeah.
strong and doing sport is kind of what makes me happy, even though it's, yeah, not the adrenaline of running or just the outdoors. I am doing more walking outdoors, and I find that weird because I kind of like, oh, I could go on the turbo for half an hour, but then I don't get my outdoor fix. Then I could go and
Yeah.
walk for an hour, but then that's not really very aerobically taxing. So I kind of have been balancing the things together, depending on the weather and my mood.
Yeah, and I think, it's not that long, it feels like a long time
That's what
when you're
everyone keeps saying,
pregnant.
especially my partner keeps saying, "It's not long. You've not got to
It's
do this
easy
for
for
much
him.
longer." I'm like, it feels like an eternity. And I know, in years to come, you'll look back and you'll be like, "Wow, it's such a small." But I just keep saying that to myself, but I can't see it. I can't see how it's like. And even now, I'm like, "Oh my god, it still feels." There was a couple of weeks ago, and I just had really bad restless legs, and I just suddenly felt like I was growing. I was like, "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can last another 6 weeks." I was being a bit melodramatic, probably, but and then I was like, I just don't know how women who have sickness the whole way through, or who can't walk, or who have swollen hands, or who have like, I don't know, all these things. I had nothing like that. I've not even had any food cravings, and I've probably eaten less than normal because I'm doing less exercise. So I've not had any of the things that people say you should have with pregnancy, and I've still found it hard. So I don't know how people who do actually have all
Mm.
these symptoms, how they do it and do it again. I just, yeah, it baffles
No,
me.
I know. I think it's a real leveler because you're like, how did everybody do this before me? And just everyone
Mm.
just does it. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people do that, and it's just like it's a massive thing, but it's really underestimated. I think it's just like, yeah, just pop babies out and have babies, and it's easy, and it's like there's so much to it. Like the whole pregnancy is a big thing, especially I think sometimes when you're active, it is like a lot harder to deal with because it's like, well, this is a complete change in my life, or there's so much about it that is hard to deal with or like really challenging to deal with. And how did you find it like with your partner, because they're obviously like not pregnant, like carrying on as usual? Do you find that kind of annoys you or like irritates you in
Um,
any way?
I
Because it did
I
for
just I
me.
just keep it in the bank so that and he's been really supportive actually. So it's more a matter of like, so all right, we can get him in the buggy and we'll be out doing this and we'll go swimming and we'll take it in turns, like you swim then I swim, and it's been a very positive conversation. And
That's
we don't know like whether all this will happen, but that's kind of it's teamwork. And he's like, well, I'll just be carrying, and we'll do these walks and we'll do whatever. And he's big and strong, so hopefully he'll be able to carry the little thing for until
good.
he's a decent age. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we're still fun to be able to go and do races and events together. But even then, like there was one at the end of Jan when I was too uncomfortable. I was still running a bit, but I was like, I'm not enjoying it. So I just went and I had a friend's dog and I went for a 2 hour walk whilst my partner and my friends all raced. And then I still felt like I'd done quite a like bit of exercise when we finished, and I felt like I was part of it. So it's just
Yeah.
sort of still being, yeah, still sort of embracing the challenges. But he's actually been great and gone for lots more walks with me. So on the Sunday instead of going for a
Oh,
run, I was like, you can go for your run and we'll meet up. But then he's actually just ended up walking. So and it's kind of that balance of, and when we were still running together, he'd just tow me up the hills, so I didn't have to wait. So it's kind of that. And actually, we were walking up a steep hill the other day, and he was just getting. I could tell he wanted to walk faster. I was like, so he just gives me a push. So I'm still puffing and working hard. Yeah, he's also working harder than he would do normally. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a team effort, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so we had we just moved like to the area when I got pregnant, or we'd been here for a few months, and we'd moved because of like surfing and stuff.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, I don't want to lie on a surf, but he'd be like carrying on surfing and stuff, and it was like I can't. I just didn't feel comfortable lying on a surfboard and trying to paddle with a big bump, so I just stopped. And I think that's why I got frustrated because he was
Mm,
still going out and I wasn't able to go
yeah.
and do that anymore. Um, but I was still running. I ran with the run club and things, and that was good. But yeah, it was just a bit like it was a strange time anyway because of moving here and things.
Where's here?
I'm in Pembrokeshire,
Oh, okay. Nice.
so yeah, it's nice for the sea and
Mm.
yeah, it was good. But and we moved down actually for the other reason we moved down was for rock climbing, like because there's lots of trad climbing on the sea cliffs, and because we used to climb together, and then we had children, didn't climb at all.
Yeah.
for many years. We've started
Oh.
like 5 years ago. We've started back up again, but yeah, it was like you can't do that when it's the time aspect. I think like that's why running is so great
Mm.
because you can do it quick. You can go for a quick run, and I found sprint triathlon for me. I started triathlon after having
Okay.
children, and it was like if I do a sprint, I can fit in a bit of swimming and a bit of biking. I don't
Mm.
have to be out for hours or whatever. I can fit it in when my mum's looking after the the little ones. So yeah, that's how I got into it, but it's slightly different way
Yeah, no, that's
from
cool.
you. But yeah, it's amazing, like amazing experience, and I think yeah, you know, do it your way is the most important thing because there's so much like information and people all have their own opinions, but
Mm.
you have to be able to make your own decisions about things. That's what I don't think I was confident enough in that the first time around. So, but it is hard because you don't really know. No one gives you a handbook to
I know. Yeah. I
decide
mean,
it.
I am lucky being one of the later ones that, I've got a lot of sporty friends who've gone
Right.
through it and come out the other side, and all of them have come out the other side well, even if it's been a tough journey in the middle. So,
Mm,
and they're all also, I think just being slightly older, that I'm got that confidence to listen to what people have to say, but then interpret what I want. And I think
yeah.
also my friends have been very clear of like, you get so much advice, but like this was my experience, but it's not advice, it's just my experience.
Yeah.
And yes, I've been very fortunate with that of kind of find someone who's had any experience I can kind of touch on someone who's had that. So and also being later, we've been given so many free baby clothes, so there's a few bonuses with that. And but it's funny because everyone, I do feel a little bit that pressure. Everyone's like, oh, you'll just bounce back because I've had a smooth pregnancy and things
Oh,
like. But I'm like, I don't. Yeah, that's not what I'm sort of measuring it on. And I find it very flattering that they say that, but I also don't want that to kind of like pressure me and feel like I need to.
no.
So and just trying to sort of see it as a compliment, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, I think that can be like it's well-meaning, isn't it? But sometimes it can be like, okay, people are expecting this of me, but you know,
Mm.
they don't really. I think people just say it because they're trying to be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you got any kind of like, are there any lessons that you've learned from, training when you're pregnant and, how you've had to adapt? Is there anything that you'd want to share with anyone that's
I think I've
pregnant or,
rephrased it as exercising rather than training. It's a and in some ways I've like even this morning when I was going to the pool, I was like, oh, I can't really bother swim. I was like, well, I know it's not going to hurt because I don't have to do a session. I'm just getting in and
mm,
swimming. And the amount of times when I've wished I could be that person in the easy lane when I've been like trying to train for something. So I've tried to sort of see it from that aspect and see it in a different way. And I've definitely had phases in since retiring from being a professional athlete of going through phases when I just was so unmotivated and just not even running for a while and things and and finding that like losing where I was. Whereas now I have enjoyed, now I've stopped running, but I did just enjoy just going for a run and going, oh, I can just see how I feel. It's that permission in my words, like be lazy. But it's weird because I find normally if
yeah,
I
I
don't
think you
have it,
need to stop saying that.
but if I don't have a goal, I quite often will just stop running, or I won't really.
Right.
I will struggle to get out the door. So I'm used to having a goal, but it's quite refreshing that I don't really have a goal yet. I do in the same way, but it's a very different one. So it has been refreshing, and I kind of feel like it's almost it's not like being injured because it's very different, but mentally I it's like being injured with a date when you know that you will be less injured kind of thing. So it's kind of,
Mm,
when you're injured, you're coming back and you don't quite know like how much, and it's that fear and that anger and that frustration. But it's like, well, I've chosen this and it's a
yeah.
privilege to be pregnant, and I'm very lucky. So I have to just sort of remind myself of that and try to enjoy the fact that I can still be active rather than resenting it. So yeah, on the whole, I've just for me, outdoors is the key, and I've also still been able to do loads of travel. We've been away on work shoots, and I think that the team at work we're not quite sure. We were filming on the bike in January, so I was trying to think how many weeks I was then. I can't remember, but I was definitely showing.
Mm,
And I think they weren't quite sure of how to like depict me the videos and like doing cycle stuff and like challenges. Obviously, I can't like. I always struggle a bit because I'm doing challenges with the boys who are just naturally stronger than me, and that's like now this is exacerbating. We were doing one
Yeah.
hill climb where we were adding a kilo of weight every time we went up this hill and looking at our power and heart rate difference. And the irony being, it's like we
You
finished it.
already got like
Yeah, and I said that. So I think James ended up with 10 kilos, and at the time I was about 8 kilos heavier than my normal weight. So I'm like, welcome to my world. But yeah, just trying to see the fun side of it, and see the opportunities of doing like way more. Yeah, I've got some friends who run slower, and I sometimes had to say no to going for a run with them because I need to do a session on that day. And I was like, oh, I can do the warm up with you, but then I really do the session. Whereas, for that period when I was running, I was like, yeah, we can just run and chat. And I was like, I'm really slow. She's like, no, that's great. I like slow. So that has definitely been positives. And also like running with my sausage dog. I can't really run and do a session with him, but he quite likes my slower runs and stuff. And then I'm like, oh, he looks a bit tired, I'll walk now. So there has definitely been that like sort of shift in just trying to do it more for enjoyment. But also I've tried to remind myself whilst doing this that like when I do get back to eventually running, whenever that might be, that I need to remember all those times when I wanted to run hard as well, and bottle that, so that when I'm like it's raining and I don't want to go out, think, no, I'm lucky that I can. Think of those 9 months or 12 months or however long when you couldn't run hard. So yeah, I try to just sort of remember that as well. And I've found when I've been injured in the past, I've always tried to really just remember like being injured that you couldn't run at all. You see someone running, you just think, God, they're safe. They don't know how lucky they are. Just remember that you are then that lucky person when you do get to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Like having that gratitude for
Yeah.
being able to do it, and appreciating. You mentioned the outdoors. I mean, that's something that's a really important thing for me, and a lot of people I think that do triathlon. It's like this. It's an excuse to get outdoors, isn't it? Go outside and see amazing places. And sounds like you do a lot of traveling, which you get to see and ride and run in different places, and that is a privilege. It is something that we should always be grateful for, and it's easy to forget that we're really lucky to be able to do that.
I think that was the thing I found the hardest to start with when I started to get to the point where running was uncomfortable. But like for me, it was weird to go for a walk. Like I don't have my dog in Bath; he's back at home at my parents because I sort of couldn't really fit running and walking. And I'm about to have him back because I will be doing more walking. And I kind of feel like you can't go for a walk unless you have a dog because you need a purpose. So it's taken me a little bit of time to like get used to just going for a morning walk. It's a bit strange, but it's now I've got my head around that and got into the habit of it. Even if it's just 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because my 30-minute run when I'm fit, when it's an easy run, is like a walk, really. It's just a jog, and I just go a little bit further. So I just had to reframe that to realize that it makes me feel so much better if I just get outside and I don't. It's okay to go walking. You don't have to run everywhere. So it's just a weird reframing.
Yeah, and just just look at everything. You've got time to look at everything around you, haven't you?
Well, yeah, that is another thing. And I listen to podcasts, whereas when I run, I don't ever listen to music or anything. So I've had a lot of time to educate myself on some pregnancy things, but also just some fun things as well whilst going for a walk.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and you'll probably be walking with the baby afterwards quite a lot. Well, we had to do a lot of that for getting into sleep.
Oh no.
Didn't
I've also had
sleep.
to do a lot of walking in the evenings because I've had restless legs, so I just just go out and do something. So that's another thing that there's not much research on, but all the things are sort of saying make sure you do exercise, you eat healthy food, you drink loads of water. I'm like, I do all of those, and then they're like, oh, it's maybe because you're doing too much. I'm like, no, it's not because I'm doing too much at all. So it like going for a walk later, or that's why I have to make sure I've done enough each day. And I know lots of people are sort of tired in pregnancy, but I've had like as much, almost more energy because I'm doing less training. So it's a bit of a strange concept of like I feel like I'm cheating. I'm like I almost want the tiredness so that I can go to sleep. So it's a weird concept, but I shouldn't complain.
Maybe you need to do some like meditation or something.
Yeah, probably.
To wind down when you're at night. We did the second time round. I did something called hypnobirthing because I had a C-section the first time and I wanted to have a natural birth the second time around. And there's a lot of that kind of visualizing and meditating, and we had like
I have a hypnobirthing class tomorrow actually.
Oh, it's really good. It's amazing. If you're doing that is really good. I found that helped so much. It was brilliant because we went through everything that happened the first time round and kind of really helpful. And so your partner does that as well.
Yeah, we're both going to it's part of the course. So we're both
because they have to help you, don't they? And and read you the script and stuff. So yeah, that really helps. It's amazing if you can use that. Cool. So yeah, you we talked briefly. I'm aware of time, so
I'm more for
we're
you because I
trying.
was like, we're
Yeah, I
close to your
know.
bedtime.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's all right. I can hear the kids sort of like running up and down the stairs now. But yeah, so we talked a little bit about after, you know, your plans after, and it sounds like you're going to keep things quite flexible and kind of see how you. Do you have anything that you really want to do or that you've thought
I
about
think
or?
I was talking about it to people at work actually because obviously I work within the triathlon industry and I still want to be doing some things that we can make into videos. So part of it's like, oh, I
Mm,
want to be educating other people. That maybe sounds not educating, I guess informing and sharing the knowledge that I find. But yeah, already sort of putting together a script for postpartum. And it's not about my journey per se, it's more about like what the information is out there to help other people. But I'll be
yeah.
sort of presenting it whilst post. But then also doing various challenges of like it's actually a fresh slate for me, but also for the channel of doing things like couch to 5K in a sense, because
Yeah.
never I will be almost like I'll be starting again. So there's different content. So I've kind of been had my work hat on in some ways of like seeing opportunities of things of brands we could work with or of things we could do that are different to normal because normally people are just like, oh, I had to come run a 5K, like big deal. So it's like
Mm,
stuff like that. And I do, whether it is in 2024, whether it becomes 2025, but I do really want to try and do a sub 5 hour half because I've never really trained properly for the half, and I've got much more knowledge and much better kit now. Even though I'm older, I feel like it's. I think I've done a 501 or something. So and I've
mm,
not targeted a fast course. So that's just something that I would like to do. Initially, I got very excited and really wanted to try and race, and I should have qualified last year if I thought about it, but to race the 70.3 Worlds because I'd love to go to New Zealand and
okay.
I'll be on maternity leave. However, it looks like for some reason the qualification ends in June, so I'm like, that's way too soon.
Mm,
I had originally thought, oh, maybe, and I was like, no, that's silly. That's very silly. So unless they extend it. Whereas
mm,
the Ironman World Champs, which are in September, you can still qualify in August. So why
okay.
the December race you can't qualify later unless they change. But
Right.
that aside, yeah, I would like to. That's one of my targets. I haven't done a half Ironman for so many years, and I kind of feel like, oh, I wanted to do it anyway. So now's a good time to kind of see if I can come back
Yeah.
to that and share that goal with my partner. And yeah, so it's almost like I see it as quite exciting because it's like new, it's starting afresh in a way, and then maybe I attempt the dreaded marathon again because I am I will be 42 the following year, and I sort of think 42K. I've only done it properly once, and I got just under 3 hours, but that makes me
Oh,
scared because I
wow.
know I want if I do it again, I need to try and get under three. So we'll see. But yeah, there's lots of I just get excited by sort of running races and maybe some ultras, but yeah, there's a lot that I want to do, and I might be completely overambitious, but
Mm.
I'm not putting things in the diary that are like, right,
Yeah,
I've got
you've
to do
not.
this
There's no
then.
time scale on it, is
No.
there? And it's like there is plenty of time. Like there's loads of races that I wanted to do, and I had all these ideas about what I wanted to do, and some of them I've done, and some of them I haven't, and some of them I
Mm,
might do, and some of them I might not, and it doesn't really matter because it's what's inspiring you at that moment, and
exactly. Yeah.
what's going to get you moving and wanting to and excited about it again. So it's good that you've got those things in your mind, but yeah, being
Mm.
flexible about them is going to be really key as well. Um, so you've got some video. So you did a video on. It's up now, isn't it? The Global
It is. Yeah.
Triathlon Network, where you talked to. Who did you talk to? Some experts and.
Yeah. So I spoke. We did an interview with the physio, the pelvic health physio, who I've been seeing privately as well. Then with a athletic trainer who's worked with Olympians and people of all sorts of sporting abilities in America called Brianna Battles, and she runs her own actual training program where she trains other coaches to
Okay.
coach pre and post pregnant women. And she's just sort of found 10 years ago there was nothing out there and basically took it upon
Yeah.
herself to start, and she's made a sort of curriculum and things, so she's quite inspiring and very knowledgeable. And then also we interviewed Jess Learmont, the Olympic champion, who's on her sort of very steady return. She had a really smooth pregnancy, really smooth birth, but she's still she waited till 12 weeks. She's waited that long and she's still in theory maybe trying to get to Paris. I'm like,
Oh wow.
that's a real sign that that's a real yes, that should be the way you do it, because yeah, she does have as much support as anyone's going to have around her. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll put the link to the video below in the show notes so that people can access that video and kind of dig in a little bit deeper into all the information that you've got in there. It's really great that you're putting more content out like that as well, and I'm looking
yeah,
forward
I
to
mean,
seeing it.
I've been really flattered by the comments, because our audience are mainly male, and
Mm,
even the ones who are female are probably not that many are pregnant right now or thinking of being pregnant right now. So the ratio, when you think of our viewership, is tiny. Yet the video is growing, and the comments have been so encouraging. And what the most encouraging part is, quite a few men have commented really positively and just how they
mm,
found it really interesting, or they wish they'd known that to be able to support their partner and stuff. So I find that
mm.
a lot of this stuff now, I think men are becoming more open-minded to the fact that 50% of the population are women, and
Yeah.
their friends and family will be women. So there's a much greater understanding and a greater sort of want for the knowledge. So that for me has been really rewarding. But also just hearing from other women who've shared their journey as a result of watching that video. So I just find that really cool too.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm really happy that you're doing that, and it's nice to see that people are responding to it positively, because we do need like more of it out there. I think, like you say, the triathlon population is mainly male, and when I started coaching, it was like, oh, I need to do it this way because that's what all the coaches do, and most of the coaches are men. And then I was like, well, actually, women aren't necessarily interested in the all of these things. They're interested in other things. So I started kind of thinking about it in a different way and how I approach things in a different way. And I've probably changed a lot of stuff that I do. I mean, it's just like there's a different mindset, and it's really important to acknowledge that and share content that is relevant and interesting for us as women, because it isn't all really, it doesn't all appeal, but not everything appeals to everyone anyway, but there are differences for sure, so it's good to have that. Awesome. So is there anything else you wanted to like add or say to people before we
Um,
finish up?
I don't know if this is too niche, but I've just today done an interview actually with a specialist or a scientist from Whoop, which is the wearable
Oh
wristband.
yeah.
I'm not sponsored by them, but it's
Yeah.
more the fact that we were looking at HRV, so heart rate
Yeah.
variability, and I've been wearing it since November and been following my HRV, and I put up a personal post I don't know, months ago, just sort of sharing mine and questioning why it's so low. And I had so many people like asking about it and being really interested, and then a few people were like, oh, mine was low when I was pregnant. And
Right.
um and and yeah, speaking to Emily today, she was saying that, and she's 14 months post, her baby's 14 months old, and she said that interestingly your HRV does massively reflect pregnancy, and I've only used it since I've been pregnant, so mine has been
Right.
low all the time. And she said yes, it is much lower, and then as you get towards the end of your pregnancy, it should start coming up. Mine is really at the moment, so I'm like, come on, I hope it's like going to start coming soon. But she said actually after you give birth, because a lot of stresses, things that make it lower, and just lack of sleep and all this. I thought, well, surely it'll be worse. But she says no, actually after birth, bizarrely, your HRV shoots up because your body is no longer working as hard as it is at
Oh
the
yeah.
moment. And she kind of, was just sort of explaining that, of like how this is like a massive endurance thing for your body, and that's why your HRV is low. Once you've given birth, your body is no longer, yes, it's doing other things, and mentally you might be really tired and things, but actually the physiological, the way your nervous system is reacting, is giving you a much higher HRV, and that can stay high for a really long time. And that actually is kind of a benefit along with all the other physiological changes. And I just found that really fascinating. So I'm hoping that
Oh.
my HRV is going to shoot up and stay higher, because I've literally just finished making a video about it today, and it's not about your numbers compared to anyone else's, but we're all competitive, and you still do look at yours compared to everyone else's, and mine's so low. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, but I'm more just curious because I haven't ever looked at that measurement when I've not been pregnant. So yeah, that's something that if your listeners do measure their heart rate variability
Yeah.
and things, and also resting heart rates being relatively high compared to normal. So it'll be interesting. Just I find that quite fascinating to track those sorts of things.
Yeah.
and see, just to understand a little bit more of how your body is reacting and what my body's doing. And yeah, so
Yeah, it's quite
there is.
interesting to see it with the HRV, because it is like, you're pregnant and you just think, oh yeah, I'm just me, like with a bump
Mm,
or whatever, but your body's doing loads of stuff, isn't it? It's like massive changes, and it's just incredible what it's doing, and you don't really think of that.
yeah.
But to see it in numbers, that would be like really interesting to see. Yeah, yeah, no, that'll be so. That video's coming out soon, is it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's coming out this weekend. I think they're editing it tomorrow. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
Yeah. Well, depending on
it's one
where
of
to
those
get the.
hard ones though, because it was a very interesting interview, and I've got to tomorrow work out what we can cut out because
Oh,
it was too
yeah.
much info in it, which is always a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, if it's depending when I get the podcast out, I can link to that video as well.
Yeah.
But people will find it anyway if they follow your channel on YouTube. They'll be able to get hold of that video. But yeah, it's been really good talking with you. I could have carried on asking you loads of questions for ages, but
Oh.
it is my bedtime.
Yeah,
I'm like,
sorry for eating into your
no,
bedtime.
no, 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 don't be silly. That's fine. I'm just like I I'm quite sort of routine-y in the evening. I have a bit of a like wind down and stuff like that. And but it's good to do things differently as well every now and then, because otherwise you just get, I'm like getting older. I'll start getting stuck in my way.
Oh.
So yeah, but great to talk to you, and I'll put the links below. And yeah, people can find you on the Global Triathlon Network. And 4 weeks. Good luck with everything. I hope it all goes
Thank
great and
you.
smoothly. And if it doesn't, it'll all be fine anyway. You'll get through whatever
Well,
anything
like we
throws at
said,
you.
and women have done it before us, so I'm sure it's doable, whatever that route might look like.
Exactly. Yeah, and it'll be the right route for you,
Mm.
whatever happens. Amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks, Heather.
No worries. Thank you. Good night.
Cheers. Night
Bye.
night. Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye for now.